So this is a pretty advanced exercise in inhibition when approaching a higher level skill such as vocalizing. So before doing this, you'll want to have some experience with this work overall, and also doing some preparatory work to this, whether it's in a lie down for some period of time or directing while standing or sitting. Definitely come to this with a lot already working and a lot of improvements already happening, so that you can better observe your habit as it creeps in and starts to interfere with that integrated coordination that you had working pretty nicely to start with. So what I like to use is just a free software such as Capo, or any other kind of software that you can use to easily loop a section of a song that you could download, or if you have it already. And so what you want to do for this exercise practice session is using a software such as that and a song that you have, and the song that has a vocal part that you like a lot and that is comfortable in your range. You're going to select just a single line or melodic phrase that's pretty short and simple but still musical, and use your software to loop this section so that it continuously plays just that short excerpt. And assuming, again, that you've gotten things going pretty well, you can set a timer for 10 minutes or so just to keep, boundaries on your practice session. That makes it easier to fully keep your attention within that session. And so you're going to be directing and have this loop playing, and simply observe the occasional impulse to sing with the recording, as well as the creeping tendency to engage in your habits related to vocalizing as you sit and just receive this stimulus. And now when you observe the impulse to sing, you're going to say no to this impulse without interrupting your directing. And if you observe that you're tightening your neck, thighs, or interfering in some other way, you can be almost diplomatic as you reason out with yourself what you want and what you don't want. So you can say to yourself, I accept that I am actually desiring to tighten my neck, and that this feels right and normal in this context, but I'd like to let that desire go, and instead I would like for my neck to be free, to allow my head to go forward and up, to let my back lengthen and widen, and my knees go forward and apart. Now, once you reason this out with yourself a few times, simply saying no to the stimulus will have more depth and significance, as it now bears the meaning, no, I do not want to send the misdirections that I find comfortable and familiar, and give space for your new directions to flow. As I've been practicing this, I've noticed a few things. One is that it's important to say no to the stimulus, or your habitual pathway, habitual reaction to that stimulus at the start and all the way through giving your new directions, which is something that Alexander repeatedly emphasizes, but it's not always, it's something that's easy to gloss over. And it's not really so hard to just say no while also thinking through the directions. 2 is to be careful not to associate saying no or inhibiting with some kind of tightening that you're unconsciously using to measure how good you're doing at this or how hard you're working. This is one reason I find it helpful to reason through some of this through more of an internal dialogue, as it keeps things at the level of giving or refusing consent to wishes or intentions, rather than getting caught up in feeling, and feeling like you're doing it right or feeling like you're doing something that is leading to inhibition, which brings the next point into play, which is to keep in mind that any kind of reassurance you find yourself taking from your feeling is probably just an indication that you're engaging in your habit. And as you refuse the habitual pathway, or your habitual tendency, and build up your new conscious directions in response to this vocalizing stimulus, you're crossing from the known to the unknown, as Alexander said. And it's actually going to feel weird and unfamiliar. You just have to stick to the process. So I find that when I'm able to say no to the original stimulus continuously while giving my directions that are grounded in understanding and an observation of what I don't want, which is to say, I've noticed the way that I tighten my neck and the way that that pulls my head back, and that in turn tightens and shortens my back, which causes me to tighten in my thighs. And I understand the primary directions are a counter to that entire habitual misdirected coordination. And if I poise myself to embrace the strange kind of fear that will arise when things start to change and feel different, but to commit to sticking with the reasoning process that brought about those improvements and changes, and keeping a calm and bright attitude the whole time, attentive to my environment, that's when I find that I get the best results with this. And it's a good way overall to just begin to expose yourself to a really powerful stimulus, and just to engage with that whole thinking process is really the purpose of this. It's not about perfectly overcoming your habit and being able to vocalize perfectly. You don't even really need to get to the point of actually vocalizing. You're really just saying no and observing the whole mental, psychophysical dynamic of stimulus, thoughts, conceptions, misdirections and conscious directions, habitual tightening and undoing and release, and coordination of the primary control. There's a lot to explore, and so this is just a process of learning more about all of those components and becoming more skillful in orchestrating them in the way that we want.